Hi guys, it's Yannick, and I have a new video. This one is about my experience with vegetarianism. I found there's a lot of different things that basically were very important for me to turn vegetarian. I had a hard time losing a little bit of weight, and then I've had some problem with it might have been cardiovascular. So basically, one point, um, uh, it felt like I had a heart attack at my age. So I got really, really, really scared, and then it kind of told me to lay off the burgers for a bit. I loved meat. I was always like, oh yeah, I love meat, blah blah blah. And I'm currently in a relationship with someone that's vegetarian, and guess what? I had to switch for my own sake. So after eating a lot of greasy meats and stuff like this, and I've also experienced stuff with chicken where I've ate chicken and it gave me a really bad headache, and a lot of the chemicals that they add to the food and um, chickens with arsenic, and then cows that are high on hormones, and the chickens that are being like stressed out, which can create lots of different effects on the meat I ate. I felt like sometimes I would get way more hormonal, like dysfunctions in my life. So then um, I basically laid off the meat, and then I turned vegan straight off the bat. I was just like, you know what? For 2 months, I only ate food that were non-dairy, so nothing rooted to any sort of animal. Only plants, seeds, grains. I've had a lot of fruits also, and so I basically lost straight up 20 pounds, and all the fat layer that I had over my body just vanished. I also stopped exercising because I wanted to rebuild my muscle from scratch. So I lost a lot of weight, and um, I was close to 200 pounds, and now I'm close to 180 pounds. So so basically, I lost all that weight throughout. Later on, I went back to vegetarianism as soon as I started working out. Um, I do eat a lot of eggs, and I don't drink milk based out of dairies. I only have almond milk. I used to have soy milk, and then I switched to almond milk eventually. I found almond milk was really satisfying, really soft to the taste and everything. Been eating a lot of grains. I love nuts, so basically I've looked also at the nutrients on nuts. Brazilian nuts are really good for men. They also have an amino acid that's called thiamine. There is peanuts. Peanuts are so rich in zinc. They're really good for men also for the buildup of the ding dong philosophy and then theory. And then basically there's almonds, really good for the skin. Probably has vitamin E. I started also sprouting. The nutrients of sprouting gave me a lot of energy. As soon as I stopped eating meat, I got tons of energy, so I wouldn't get sleepy after eating a burger, which is a small burger, but it would just pack down in my stomach, and then I would feel drowsy. I would need coffee, and then after the coffee, I would have my heart that would like start palpitating, and all kinds of stuff was happening. So I was basically I basically like got way healthier, got a lot much more done, and got way more productive. My mood got a lot better, and and then as I started exercising, I started gaining a lot much more lean muscle that works. I mean, it still works, right? I was into bodybuilding back in the days. for a little bit, and I got to 215 pounds. I was really big, muscular, but I found I used to have a lot of injuries from it. So then, um, too many chiropractor sessions, I kind of slow down that. So now I just want to keep lean muscles, only use my own body weight, so I can do more athletic sports and carry my body further. Um, on the diet, I found something that was really good for me. I'm not so sure of the amino acid balance in it, but when you become a vegetarian or a vegan, you tend to learn about amino acids, which amino acid is basically the breakdown of all the different proteins, the breakdown of the protein. So it's kind of like imagine like a tree, and each branch is an amino acid. So I've had quite a lot of research on different things. But then I also went with what I felt like eating, and for the talking about the amino acid and why I talk about thiamine and Brazilian nuts is because when I was craving turkey, and I was craving turkey for a little while, I didn't know why I was craving turkey, so I listened to my mind, and then I researched what it is that's in turkey that's so important. Thiamine. You can get in Brazilian nuts. And now I don't crave turkey anymore. Straight up. It's just done. So a lot of things like that. I hear a lot of things. Oh, you don't get enough B12. Apparently, so we did some tests recently. Our B12 levels are actually really close to 100%. So we have quite a lot of B12. We do take some supplements once in a while. We also turned I turned later on a bit more pescatarian for the DHA, which is uh, really good for the brain, and also really good for men, especially uh, sexually active. And then it works at a cellular level and basically can promote a healthier way. But that's another story. Then another thing I found, as I was saying, is rice. Usually, I always have brown rice, unless if I'd have something like sushi, um, which we have once in a while, just for the omegas, which you can also get from hemp seeds. Also has tons of protein, rich in nutrients. There is tons of protein in nuts. It's just spectacular. It also has a lot of B vitamins in certain ones. Walnuts are really good for the brain also. Um, and as I was saying, like the lentils, I would mix that with quinoa, red quinoa particularly, and then I would mix that with rice or something, and that would be like my base. So based off that, I would have other things that contain also protein, like broccoli, which is also good for the lungs. If you have broccoli sprouts, you you can look at Rena Patrick, I think that's her name, and she talks about it. She's on the Joe Rogan podcast. But sprouts, especially broccoli sprouts, are really good to regenerate certain cells in for that for the lungs. Other than that, I found that because my vitamin intake was way higher, I was way healthier, much faster. I also had my skin would clear out much faster. And then I started doing a lot much more research, so I became more intelligible about a lot of fruits and their nutrients, like healthy fats, like avocados, um, and virgin olive oil, which are really good. Um, and there's one thing that one person said, which was very interesting, is basically how to have a balanced diet, a balanced meal, which was a pretty simple way to narrow it down. It's cool. So the idea was, if you have a meal, you'd have a thumb of healthy fats. You'd have a palm of protein, and then you'd have a fistful of carbs. I hear then people, doing all types of different diets. I've tried many different ones, and I just stayed with the one that fits for me, and also fits with my personality. I do like to go out fishing a lot, and so sometimes I go get some bass, and so that's one of the reasons why I turned back to pescatarian. I really want to push the vegan way, as a matter of fact. So that's why I stay away from as many animal products as possible. Do have some fish, usually wild fish. Otherwise, I'll just have sushi once in a while. I know it's not perfect, but it really satisfies me in a lot of ways. And I sometimes do have dairy because I'm French, and because I do have family in Japan. I tend to, want to enjoy the fish there because it's the best fish in the world. Um, so they have the higher selection basically. Then another thing too I found was really helpful is because I stopped eating meat. Then I wouldn't just have a slab of meat that I would just put on my pan, some bread, and then a teeny tiny bit of lettuce, tomato, blah blah blah, and then just eat that with lots of cheese, and then just sit there, not move for about half an hour. So when I stopped eating meat, I would actually push myself to cook more. So then I would have way more nutrients. And when I was talking about broccoli, there is also cabbage, which is good for men. It pushes the testosterone levels. If you want to work out, it's a good source of protein. And then I do have like I will cook more, so I will get my garlic going, the onion. I will get the spinach going. We got the broccoli in there. We've got some tomato. We've got tons of stuff. Sometimes I prefer to go raw, just because I know of the nutrients. I know the nutrients are there. They're present. They're there to enrich my uh, uh, my metabolism. So then I definitely want to get that in my system. I found with meat, because it's cooked, well, guess what? Less vitamins, right? So, and then if you eat some fresh fruits that just got some sun, even sometimes I leave my fruits a little bit outside in the sun in the window. And then guess what? I get a little bit more vitamin D that's gonna power these fruits a little bit more, get them nice and juicy, and because we're in Canada, I am, and here we get a lot of stuff basically imported. So what happens is when it's imported, then they get it green. We receive it. It's close to the color, but it's still green. So I tend to really push that. And when I get green bananas, I leave them on the window. Um, I don't know if it does much, but for me, I see a difference. Obviously, they get yellow faster, and then they get a bit more tender, and also the flavor adjusts itself. Definitely. Um, uh, so that's that. I found switching over. Obviously, I had a lot of remarks from people going, "Oh wow, why did you do it? Isn't it hard?" And well, hard, easy. These are just things that go with practice. So if you do something, guess what? It's gonna get easier if you keep doing it. That's called discipline. And another thing too is, oh, don't you miss it? Well, I found that actually, once you get a diet going and you enjoy it, you truly and understand the values of it, and you feel the effect of it. You're definitely gonna enjoy it. So that's one thing I absolutely, respect. Obviously, people, they're curious, they want to know, they want to understand, and I found it's healthier. I used to have a really oily skin. I just have jojoba on, but I used to have an oily skin, and it used to be like this without oils, because I used to eat red meat, and so then I just wanted to cut it down also for that. Another thing I found, my six pack reappeared because before I used to get muscular, but I would have like a layer just over my six pack, and now it's nice and dense. I can see the definition, so it's really easy to get definition without having to go on a diet that means restriction of eating, like, oh, that's it, I'm gonna stop eating now because I have to look skinny. Not that kind of party for me. I love eating. And so, there is also faux meat. You can get that in certain supermarkets. I do tend to be careful with all these processed food. Processed means something that has been manufactured in a way where it is not fully natural in its own way. You know what I mean? It's like, if you make it yourself, it's probably not processed at all. So if it's done by a factory and they put all kinds of different preservatives and stuff like this, it's processed. So basically, making my own food, but then sometimes I'd have some faux meat, and there's lots of ways. Like I'm part Argentinian, so since I was a kid, I love the burritos. It's not really Argentinian; it's more Mexican, but I always loved it, and I still make it. It's one of my favorite meal because you can get a balanced meal, easy to go. Boom, boom, you wrap it up, bam, and then you have it, right? So then you get a slice of avocado in there. I'd get the rice, the quinoa, the lentils, and I'd always cook it in the rice cooker, and then I'd put one basil leaf, and then bay leaf. Sorry, one bay leaf. You can put some basil if you want, not too much, and then basically just add some other herbs to it, right? If you like curry, you could add curry. If you like masala, or you can go crazy with it. I think I think it's really good. That it's a good base, and then for the cheese, I've actually cut down the cheese now. So sometimes I have a bit of mozzarella, but now I've learned to appreciate my burritos without cheese, which is spectacular. I sometimes have goat cheese because I've been also studying the alkalinization of how alkaline my food is, and how acidic it is, and how dairy basically is base, but then turns into acid, right? So it's so then it goes into the yellows, the reds, and all of that, as green is more alkaline. Um, I prefer being alkaline. I sometimes push myself to offset that a little bit, just to have my gut to stay healthy, because it is good for the gut to be acidic too. The body can adjust itself, just like the stomach can create acid too, I believe. Excuse me. But I think that it does help to do some research. You don't want to do some drastic measures straight off the bat. For me to turn into veganism, for those 2 first months, it was a lot of research, and then I made sure that I had my set of nuts, that I had my healthy carbs, and then basically I would get my sources of protein and everything set. So I know some vegans, and they're really really good cook. So they cook everything, prep it in the morning. They'll eat their sprouts. Sometimes when I'm on the go, it's a bit more work. So it's just an excuse. You know what I mean? I'm not perfect as yet. But eventually, if I can, then why not? So far, I found the eggs have been helping me. That's mostly the only thing that I have that's animal based. I don't think it hurts that much the chickens. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully they don't take their beak out and do all kinds of torturous things to them. But it's one of the reason, and also for the respect for nature. I wanted to help a little bit my environment, where I live, and I believe that nowadays the only way to really promote ecology, respect for Mother Nature, respect for animals, respect for other souls, living beings that are around us that do think, even though they may not speak the same language. Like, like if you look at whales, we think they don't speak our language, so they must be stupid, right? Well, they actually have way more apparently words than humans. So things like that, we don't always realize, they all have feelings. I mean, if you dogs know if they're scared or not, but we won't eat the dog, right? So why eat the chicken? Why torture the cow? Why torture the, all these things, right? So I think that's one of the reason why I also slow down on that, because nowadays, first of all, we have knowledge. Second of all, uh, we can get that knowledge easily. We can just Google something and get the nutrients we want. We can basically create any type of diet we need based out of fruits, vegetables,